Anybody in New Hampshire, because they're watching right now, but anybody in New Hampshire that votes for Biden, I happen to be a very solid rock. We're not weird. We're other things perhaps, but we're not weird. We had a good debate, and it was a fair debate, and he was down like 18 or 19 points after the debate. And I hate mosquitoes. I'm surprised. I didn't think we had. We don't like those mosquitoes running around. You have no choice. You've got to vote for me. You've got to vote for me. You got to.
A desperate, visibly confused, and low energy, Donald Trump sat down for an event that was billed as a Fox News town hall hosted by Hannity, even though Hannity didn't allow any audience questions. And during the course of the conversation, Trump forgot who he was running against, begged for votes, and had a sociopathic and incoherent response to a recent mass shooting. This may be his worst town hall event yet. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends. We have several clips to talk about in this video. It seems that Donald Trump's cognitive decline is rapidly increasing. And that might explain why we don't see him nearly as often, why his campaign schedule is relatively light compared to what it was months ago, or 2020 or 2016. His handlers are probably keeping him away from mass audiences and mass cameras, okay? And you'll see it here. I mean, just the incoherent, the dishonesty, and the forgetting of very basic facts pertinent to Donald Trump's own current situation. I mean, we gotta remember, Donald Trump is the oldest presidential candidate in American history, 78 years old. The polls show that anywhere from 50 to 65% of Americans have doubts about Donald Trump's mental fitness to be president. And certainly the polls reflect that Vice President Kamala Harris is much more mentally and physically fit to be president than Trump. So one assumes that one worried about President Biden when he was a Democratic nominee would have the same concerns about Donald Trump either then or certainly now, especially when there's a younger, fitter alternative. But so much of the mainstream and certainly right-wing media tends to omit that, however, all of this incoherence and stupidity and cognitive decline were on full display. And we're going to start with this one here, in which Donald Trump has apparently forgotten who he's running against.
I can't imagine New Hampshire voting for him. Anybody in New Hampshire, because they're watching right now, but anybody in New Hampshire that votes for Biden and Kamala.
So again, he forgot who he was running against. President Biden hasn't been the Democratic nominee in about a month. Okay? He formally withdrew from the race. Vice President Harris is the formal official Democratic nominee. He has a debate, Donald Trump does, coming up against her in like 5 days, but he is still so stuck in the past, wishing he was running against Joe Biden. And you know, he was like, anyone who votes for this guy, anyone who votes for Biden, oh wait, or Camila, and then he tries to pivot, but too late. Don, we caught you. You forgot who you were running against. Another clip here.
Although a friend of mine said, you shouldn't have done the interview. He's not going to make it. And you know what? He didn't make it. You know, think of this. It's very unfair in a lot of ways. I complain about it. But she ran against him in the primary. She got no votes. And she was the first to leave. I think 22 people or something like that. And she dropped. She was down to nothing, never even made Iowa. And he got 14 million votes, and they threw him out. They said, we want you out. And he wasn't going to win, I don't think. I mean, I don't think he was going to win, but we did a good debate. We had a good debate, and it was a fair debate. And he was down like 18 or 19 points after the debate. And I hate mosquitoes. I'm surprised. I didn't think we had. We don't like those mosquitoes running around. We want nothing to do with them. And we want nothing to do with bad politicians that hate our country, too.
Well, that last part, we want nothing to do with bad politicians who hate our country. Then we don't want anything to do with you, Donald, do we? Because Donald Trump is the one who constantly smack talks. America, he's the one who denigrates America. He says that we're a third world country, that we're in a nation in decline. He's the one who denigrates the United States of America far more than certainly any Democrat. I would argue most progressives as well, who are very critical of America for much more substantive reasons than this clown and his cult. But that entire clip right there was just an SNL skit, right? I mean, that could have been lifted entirely from Saturday Night Live. It was a caricature of Trump played by Trump. Trump has become his own caricature, and he is so wistful. He misses President Biden. I mean, it's probably one of those situations where if Melania, loved him and wanted to be next to him, right? So just assume this fantastic hypothetical premise, right? This is basically fan fiction. It's science fiction right here, assuming that his wife loved him. But imagine you can easily see a situation where, late at night at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump is rolled over in bed and he has his phone out and he's scrolling through pictures of President Biden with one solitary tear, running down his orange cheek, wiping away the bronzer, right? Leaving just a pale streak in its wake because he misses Joe Biden. And of course, he has this concept. It was a coup. It was a palace coup. It wasn't a coup. The fact of the matter is, President Biden was not the formal Democratic nominee. He was the presumptive nominee. He was not legally, ethically, or, bound by any sort of policy or regulation to maintain his position in the race. He could have withdrawn at any time. And he chose to withdraw, and there was nothing illegal, unethical, or a violation of policy or procedure for the media or for Democratic politicians to privately or publicly pressure the president to withdraw. Because they didn't think he was going to win in the election. You may disagree with that decision, but it was not illegal. It was not unethical. It was certainly not a coup because President Biden is still the president of the United States. He's just not seeking a second term, but just goes to show how desperate Donald Trump really is. He misses President Biden very much. Another clip.
Let me tell you, there's something weird with that guy. He's a weird guy. JD is not weird. He's a solid rock. I happen to be a very solid rock. We're not weird. We're other things perhaps, but we're not weird. But he is a weird guy. He walks on the stage. There's something wrong with that guy. And he called me weird. And then the fake news media picks it up. That was the word of the day. Weird, weird, weird. They're all going, but we're not weird guys. We're very solid people.
He is clearly very triggered by the fact that the weird label is sticking particularly to J.D. Vance, but even to Trump as well. And Donald Trump is a famously strange person. He's clearly very triggered by that. Even Sean Hannity is like, dude, chill, calm down. Let's move on. No, how dare. He's the weird one. Nobody buys that. There are criticisms about Governor Walz. There are attempts to swift boot him. There are attempts to denigrate his military service. But this idea that Tim Walz is weird and you're all the normal ones is preposterous. That's not going to go anywhere. But Donald Trump just can't help it. This is not about strategy. He is personally offended that people, would associate him with such a negative connotation. Weird loser, like the sort of adjectives and the sort of appellations that Trump wants to be associated with. It could be construed as negative, would be how we describe Darth Vader or Vladimir Putin. Right? He doesn't mind adjectives and descriptions and appall that suggest that he is a fearsome, mighty figure. So even fascist, I don't think particularly bothers him, right? Because he probably has in his mind a conception of fascists as being intimidating, powerful figures. But if you call him weird or a loser, those things clearly trigger him in ways that other words simply don't. I also mentioned that Trump was begging for votes. He did.
I'm not going to allow it. You can't take the chance. You have no choice. You've got to vote for me. You've got to vote for me. You got to. Even if you don't like me, Yeah.
How weird and pathetic is that you gotta vote for me. Come on. You gotta, that goes to show how desperate he is. I mean, listen, it's entirely possible that he wins the election. I keep reiterating this, and I understand that a lot of people in my audience don't like it, but it is true. The Republican Party enjoys enormous systemic advantages in this country, both in terms of political institutions and also the media. The Electoral College has an outsized grantum, an outsized influence because it advantages red rural conservative states. So it's entirely possible for Donald Trump to walk away with White House. I mean, he was the underdog in 2016, and he lost the popular vote by 3 million votes, but he still won the presidency. And even in 2020, when he was beaten pretty soundly by President Biden in terms of the popular vote by 7 million votes. If you look at the breakdown of the Electoral College, it was effectively 44,000 votes in a handful of swing states. Again, all of this is very possible, and we have to be clear-eyed about it. But right now, the momentum is squarely on the vice president's side. And it's clear that Donald Trump, even though he would never admit it, deep down, he is rational enough, he is sane enough to understand that the metrics are that he's losing as of this moment, and that's why he is begging for votes. But in a week, he'll probably go back to what he was saying before. Oh, we got plenty of votes. You don't have to vote for me. We got plenty of votes. You don't have to worry about it. This other clip is nowhere near as funny. It's really pathetic and frustrating for a lot of people because there was a recent shooting in Georgia that Trump was asked to address by Hannity. And we'll just give you a bit of a refresher about the grim details of that just to properly contextualize this. But this is what Donald Trump had to say about a recent school shooting in Georgia.
I mentioned we had this terrible shooting in Georgia.
Right.
Our prayers are with our friends in Georgia. And I've been doing town halls and interviews in public with you for all these years since you got into the political arena. And I told this audience, never before have restrictions been so tight, obviously after the assassination attempt as well. And Director Ray said the threat level has never been this bad. He said it 5 consecutive times before Congress. What is going on?
Well, it's a sick and angry world for a lot of reasons. And we're going to make it better. We're going to heal our world. We're going to get rid of all these wars that are starting all over the place because of incompetent American leadership.
He doesn't answer the question. He doesn't provide any sort of meaningful, substantive commentary. He doesn't take a moment. He doesn't even pretend to care about the situation. He doesn't do a dramatic pause. He doesn't look away. He doesn't try to give any sort of affectation to indicate that he cares about what happened at all. All he offers is, I even hesitate to call it a platitude. We're going to fix everything. We're going to fix the world. We're going to hear the world heal the world. And then he goes on to say that he is beloved by the likes of Viktor Orban and, dictators abroad. I mean, just really strange, pathetic stuff coming from the leader of the Republican Party. So for context, there were 4 dead and 9 hospitalized and shooting at a Georgia high school. A 14-year-old Appalachia high school student has been charged with murder after 4 people died. And 9 others were injured in a shooting at the Winder, Georgia school on Wednesday. Officials said the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Director Chris Hosey identified the suspected shooter as 14-year-old Colt Gray and said he will be tried as an adult. Investigators believe that the suspect used a, quote, AR platform-style weapon. Durant authorities identified 2 students killed in the shooting and math teachers as well. So those were 4. The 4 who were killed. That's the context for this. Okay? And that was what Trump was asked to respond to. Super pathetic stuff. Without belaboring the point too much, probably should go without saying that Donald Trump lied throughout that town hall. Daniel Dale of CNN, famous fact checker, gives a smattering of fact checks of Donald Trump's many lies.
And Trump also said this about the CNN interview with Kamala Harris and her running mate.
If you watch that interview, she had notes. That means she knew the questions, and she had notes. She kept looking down, up. Nobody wants to cover it.
Give us the fact check, Daniel.
Nobody wants to cover it because it did not happen. Vice President Harris did not have notes in her interview with Dana Bash. You can look at images, photos, videos from that interview if you're skeptical. There is nothing on the table right in front of her. All that's there are Dana Bash's notes. You'll notice those pieces of paper facing Dana Bash, not Vice President Harris. And of course, Vice President Harris was not given the questions in advance.
Right? And again, there's CNN article that goes into the many other fact checks as well, but there you have it. You know, you have a relatively low energy, desperate, and palpably, visibly confused Donald Trump just disintegrating before our very eyes in front of this Fox News town hall, which may be one of the reasons why Hannity didn't allow any of the audience to ask a question, even though it was supposed to be a town hall. Who knows? But this is really bad for Trump either which way, which means we should share it more. We should definitely talk about it more. Make sure these things go viral. And in the meantime, you let me know what you think in the comments.